Kathleen Bottaro, and I've taught English here for a number of years.
Okay. Now, what was your first experience with the college?
My first experience as a hire here was in 1988. Actually, no, 1980. I was an adjunct and was an adjunct for 9 years, starting over on Hartford Road in the old buildings. And then in 1988, I became a full-time instructor.
Okay, so you taught a course or two every semester?
Yes.
From 1980 on?
Correct.
What was it like teaching in the Hartford Road campus?
Very rudimentary. We had old-fashioned mimeograph machines that covered us in purple when we tried to run things off. The desks were very antiquated, but the students were not that different, and the material was not that different. So it was really just the surroundings.
Yeah. Now, did you also do some teaching in the East Campus during that period?
I did. That was a little bit different in that, in two ways, it was different. It was good in that we were, the faculty were housed more closely together in East Campus, so there was a heightened sense of camaraderie. It was different in that the classrooms were very separate from one another, so you had to go in and out to get to your classes. And there were a lot of bugs in the rooms.
Bugs as in?
Bugs as in insects.
Do you recall any times where a lesson may have been interrupted by an insect?
No, but I do have an interesting anecdote about a lesson interrupted, and also it shows the nature of the separate classrooms. It was an 8 o'clock class, and I had my back to the class and was writing on the board, and I heard a loud thud. And I turned around, and a young man in the first seat had passed out, fallen out of the tablet desk. His eyeglasses went flying, and he was out cold on the floor. As I proceeded to deal with that, there was another thud, and a youngster in the back of the room fell over unconscious. I never wanted to be a nurse. I have no expertise or leaning towards the medical profession, but I think the adrenaline kicked in. So there was no phone in the room. So I sent one youngster to the next building to phone 911. I somehow had the common sense to evacuate the classroom because I thought perhaps there were toxic fumes coming in when everybody was passing out. The next thing I knew, 911 showed up. They revived the first young man, put him in an ambulance to go to the hospital. The second young man came through. And as they were cleaning up, one paramedic looked at me and said, "Boy, lady, you teach a really tough course." As it turned out, the first young man had been up all night working in his family restaurant and hadn't eaten, hadn't slept, and simply passed out. The second person just got queasy seeing the first person pass out. So it was a lesson that you have to be on your toes to teach, and a lesson that we really should have phones in the classroom.
So you were an adjunct for about 8 or 9 years.
Correct.
And then how did your full-time hiring take place? Was there a search committee that you had to go through?
There was a search committee, yes. And my first position was I taught half-time in the English department and half-time in the College Learning Center, hiring ed assistants to tutor and running that program. And then I eventually transferred full-time into the English department.
Do you remember who was on the search committee at that time?
Oh, boy. I'd have to think about that. It's not coming to mind. That was a long time ago.
Okay. Well, who were some of your colleagues from the 1980s who made a great impression upon you?
The Paternas, Joan and Andy. I shared some space with Joan Paterna and Diane Hillier. Cyrus Williams was in my office. He, I now believe, works at Eastern Connecticut. Everybody in the English department were always close to me.
How about, let me mention a few names and see if you can recollect something about Toby Tamarkin.
Toby Tamarkin was remarkable. The first thing that comes to mind is her attire. She was a fashionista before the word was ever coined. She had outrageous and great outfits. She had what we called the car wash skirt. It was a skirt with big box pleats that were separated so they looked like the flaps in a car wash, and we called it that, and she also included that. But she was also remarkable because as a division director, she expected 150% from you, but she herself gave 200%. So I never minded working for her.
And you must have also worked with Elaine Horn?
Yes, yes. She and I go way back. In fact, I just spent the weekend with her last week at the Cape. She's retired now and blissfully happy and still teaching women in literature to older adults on Cape Cod. So we shared a lot in common because we were both relatively new professors raising our own children at home and trying to balance the needs of motherhood and family with our professional lives. So she was a mentor in that respect to me.
Okay. Is there anyone else whose name or initially beside you?
Pat Cook was always a close friend, is a close friend of mine. Mike DeRamo helped me a lot when I was young in the English department. I'm not getting any other names at the moment.
Well, you know, your career here has spanned, really 4 decades. What changes have you seen in terms of the college from 1980 to 2011?
Certainly the growth in size, both the physical plant and the student body, and that comes with great advantages but also disadvantages. There are so many faculty that I don't really know, don't interact with simply because of our size, particularly people outside of my area, although committee work does help us blend together a little bit. We have gotten much bigger in terms of what we are trying to do in the global sense. I think we're fulfilling our mission in a different way than ever before. I think that our administration has become much more responsive to what the faculty are saying and what we see as first-line providers in the classroom. I think they're listening to us more. Perhaps.
Have you noticed any changes in the student body in 30 years?
Certainly, they are less prepared, which I think is a national trend. I don't know, I'm drawing a blank. Edit.
When you reflect back on your career here, are there any particular achievements that you're most proud of?
The achievements that I'm most proud of, I think, go back to the individual feedback I get from individual students who I'll meet in the store 5 years later and they'll say, you know, your class really made an impact on me. I got the confidence to go on and graduate from a 4-year school, and thank you. Or the notes that I get, or the notes that I get from parents saying my student was transferred from a 4-year school because she had an unfortunate incident and she found safety and comfort in your classroom and is now flourishing. So I think it's those individual stories more than anything else. Certainly more than developing new courses, although that's fun too.
Now, you told a wonderful anecdote about the 2 students who fainted in your class. Can you think of any other amusing, funny situations that may have...
Not that I can say on camera. There are a couple, but no, I can't. I can, but I can't.
Because this is PG rated.
Yes, that's why I'm mute.
We may have like an unrated version.
Call me back for that.
Okay, that's fine. If you were talking to someone who had just been hired to begin his or her teaching career at the college, what advice would you give that person?
To just appreciate the remarkable workplace that this is and the amazing people that you're surrounded with every single day that you come to work. It's an incredibly stimulating environment. It's collegial where people, for the most part, support one another. And at least presently in this administration, faculty and staff are encouraged to try new things even if they fail, that's how we develop and evolve. So I would just say, love it, appreciate it, and do your thing.
One of the things that we haven't touched on is some of the outside of class activities that you're involved with. Were you involved in the Humanities Weekend back
Yes.
in the 80s, 90s?
Uh-huh.
Could you describe that? Because not too many people have talked about that.
Yeah, it was actually the brainchild, I believe, of Elaine Horn, maybe some others before I came, and I came in on it, I think on the second or third year. It was a weekend attached to a 4-credit course, either a humanities course or an English literature course. And for that 4th credit, students participated in a Friday evening till Saturday afternoon event where we looked at a theme from a lot of different perspectives. And so they read about it. They had guest appearances. Our own Chuck Please came in as Mark Twain. Doc Richardson came in as Mozart, I believe. And it was wonderful. So it was interactive. It was interdisciplinary before that term was really in vogue as it is now. And students from several different classes could mingle in a very different way on the weekend, not in the classroom. Friday night we saw a play that was put on in the theater department, and after the production, the crew and cast came out and entertained questions from the audience, which was really interesting. So it was very valuable. In many cases, I think it would be good to bring that back.
In more recent years, weren't you also involved in a one-day college event?
Yes, that idea kind of came from the Humanities Weekend. We received a nice grant from a private foundation to do something that would foster the arts with the larger community. So for 2 years, we had a thematic event where, again, people from the community came in, they shared meals, and they went to different breakout sessions, all based on the same theme. So one was the theme of why do we create? So we looked at that from a psychological standpoint, from the arts, from literature, from philosophy. And the other one had to do with theater. It was called All the World's a Stage. And so those were very well received also.
Okay. And that, when the grant ended, did that kind of put the kibosh?
No, the grant's now been diverted to other activities, and maybe someday the one-day college will come back because the evaluations were good. The people from the community enjoyed it, many of whom came to the campus for the first time and hopefully then went on to take a course maybe in continuing ed or a credit-bearing course.
Is there anything else you wanted to bring forward?
Nope.
Kathy, when Toby was here, she talked about the comparison between the faculty here and where she was up at Holyoke, and made the distinction that this particular MCC faculty went to bat on the Humanities Weekend with a vengeance. She could not get the Holyoke people to do that at all. Why?
First of all,
about Holyoke, I mean about why.
I think it was largely the humanities faculty who all just thought it was a great idea, who all loved their subject area and what they did, or even what they did on the outside in terms of working as Mark Twain, impersonating Mark Twain. And I think, and I've not been at any other community college, so I don't know what was going on at Holyoke, but here there was and is a sense of collegiality that's, I think, pretty much like none other. So everybody just was very happy to pitch in and do something that sounded fun, that allowed them to dabble in what they love to do.
Yeah, I mean, because you're doing this after hours and you're doing it on your time. And It's not only that, it's the wine auction, it's all of the other activities. I'm just amazed that the faculty are there. When the relays were going, it was the same thing. People pitched in. I know Rick did. Rick was there.
Yeah, it sounds so trite, but I think there is a real family atmosphere here. We help each other in so many ways, not only academically, but if somebody's got something going on in their personal lives and need help. And maybe it's because we started so small, and as we grew, we just kind of continued that atmosphere and welcomed new people. Like I said, it's all I know, so I don't know why that doesn't exist in other places.
Is it still here? Is it still?
I think so. I think there's more of a challenge to maintain that atmosphere because we are so big and so fragmented in terms of physical space, but I think it's happening. think it's happening.
I just want to make a note you don't have to respond to, but her husband, Rick Bottaro, served on the MCC Foundation for a number of years and is very much active with the Cougar Club. And you are as well, I think, on this up-and-coming tournament.
Right.